Our next speaker is an expert on transformation and growth, but not just any transformation and growth. Scott Amyx is an expert on what we're calling the fourth industrial revolution, in which digital drives opportunity, and opportunity exceeds anything we've ever seen before. Scott's managing partner of Amyx Ventures. His 2018 book, The Human Race: How Humans Can Survive in the Robotic Age, explores the business models and the services that will become the bedrock of the post-Fourth Industrial Revolution. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Scott Amyx.
So my doctor says that I'm low in vitamin D. I'm vitamin D deficient, and this is actually true. And I'm happy to say that being here, I am no longer vitamin D deficient for the next 10 years. I took a walk this morning. I don't know if you saw the trail outside. It's called the Interpretive Trail. So I walked around it a bit, and I interpreted, and I realized that it's hot. So if you're into quiet walks, I suggest that you try the trail at noon and see what your interpretation is, okay? Let's talk about AI. Again, thinking more pragmatically about your business. And what I wanted to do was to make it less abstract. And part of what I'm hoping to achieve in this session is to make AI, in terms of transforming your credit union organization, in tangible way that's visceral, they can see and hear. So that's what today's experience is going to be. And I'm going to use a customer journey experience to walk you through that. And I've intentionally kept the presentation very short so that we have about 10 minutes or so of Q&A, because I think the real value is not me speaking to you, but it's listening from you in terms of how do you want to use AI? How is Cooper going to fundamentally change your business and fraud and security? Now, raise your hand if you received false positive fraud alerts in the past. Okay? Now, of course, if it's real fraud, the worst part is, of course, having to get a new card and then reset up all your auto pays, right? It's quite annoying. Well, I've experienced a recent fraud alert. I'm not the handiest person in this room, I'll tell you. But apparently, there was a miter saw that was purchased and a bunch of lumber supply on my credit card. So I got a call. It said, Mr. Amyx, we noticed some suspicious activity on your credit card. I told him that definitely it was not me, because remember, I'm not handy. It turns out it was apparently my wife giving me a strong hint. By the way, that pile of lumber is still in the basement, and no kidding. Well, I want to talk to you about Cooper and how Cooper is changing this problem that you're seeing on the screen in terms of false positives. So Jenny, who's going to be in our customer journey narrative for today, receives this fraud alert on her phone from Cooper about a potential alert on her business credit card transaction. Now, the thing about this is not a false positive. This is a real deal. Let me explain why Cooper is smarter. And I know some of you had a chance to listen to earlier session today about the announcement of Cooper. The reason it's smarter is strengthening fraud-fighting abilities, and it adds that extra layer of fraud detection. And for all of you, in terms of those that are in a position of management, it does several things as you think about bringing Cooper into your organizations. One is, Cooper is agile. It can automatically adjust its algorithm based on that data. And number two, you can simply pick and choose techniques to customize. It's that simple. You don't need a whole data science team. Number three, it's constantly enriching the data in real time by gathering information from publicly available data to better understand your members and your customers. What happens if you combine Cooper's intelligent fraud alert system with something else that's also intelligent? Meet Ava. Jenny initiates a chat session to find out what's happening with her credit card, and she is greeted by Ava, which is an expressive cognitive AI who explains everything about what's happening with her card. Now, I will tell you, Ava is not human. It's a human-like digital AI assistant that can interpret and respond to your emotions and to answer your questions. By the way, Ava isn't the only digital assistant that's out there in the market. Google recently unveiled something called the Duplex. And it's able to make calls on your behalf and handle certain things like appointments and reservations. As a matter of fact, I'm going to actually have you watch that video clip just to see how far we've come.
Calling a real salon to schedule the appointment for you. Let's listen.
Sure. What time are you looking for around?
At 12 p.m.
We do not have a 12 p.m. available. The closest we have to that is a 1:15.
Do you have anything between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m.?
Depending on what service she would like. What service is she looking for?
Just a woman's haircut for now.
Okay, we have a 10 o'clock.
10 a.m. is fine.
Okay, what's her first name?
The first name is Lisa.
Okay, perfect. So I will see Lisa at 10 o'clock on May 3rd.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Great. Have a great day. Bye.
That was a real call you just heard. The amazing thing is the assistant can actually understand the nuances of conversation. We've been working on this technology for many years. It's called Google Duplex. It brings together all our investments over the years in natural language understanding, deep learning, text-to-speech. By the way, when we are done, the assistant can give you a confirmation notification saying your appointment has been taken care of. Let me give you another example. Let's say you want to call a restaurant, but maybe it's a small restaurant which is not easily available to book online. The call actually goes a bit differently than expected. So take a listen.
See how may I help you?
Hi, I'd like to reserve a table for Wednesday the 7th.
For 7 people?
It's for 4 people.
4 people when?
Next Wednesday at 6 p.m.
Oh, actually we leave here for after 5 people. For 4 people you can come.
How long is the wait usually to be seated?
For when, tomorrow or weekday or?
For next Wednesday, the 7th.
Oh no, it's not too busy. You can come for 4 people, okay?
Oh, I gotcha. Thanks.
Bye bye.
This is going to make crank calling so much more fun. I'm excited about it. But I want to take you back to Ava and have you take a look at this video of Ava in action. And it's fully rendered. It is not a human being whatsoever. And by the way, she is actually taking selfies for Instagram. I don't know about you, but when you look at something like that, it's a bit creepy, right? Kind of like your son's girlfriend who's in college, and that girlfriend keeps on insisting on calling you mom and dad and wants to be added to your will. Well, Ava is supposed to understand your emotions. But my question is, how does it know that, if I'm gassy from that burrito or if I'm just uncomfortable because she's freaking me out? By the way, Ava stands for Autodesk Virtual Assistant. So it's created by Autodesk, and it's meant to help customer interaction to be much more engaging. And it can be trained to absorb and understand your FAQs. So coming back to revenue versus non-revenue generating activities, the non-revenue generating activities, kind of the first triage layer, can be done by systems like this. So let's actually see her in action here.
If you also activate the camera, I'll also be able to see your facial expressions. Thank you for granting access to your camera. I see you are interested in AutoCAD, including specialized toolsets. Are you a current user of AutoCAD?
Yes.
So hopefully in version 2 it'll be less creepy. So coming back to the customer journey, for Jenny, she was able to actually solve her issue with the fraud alerts with Ava. And Ava is going to cancel Jenny's credit card and send her a new card right in the mail. And Ava, before hanging up that chat session, says, is there anything else I can help you with? So Jenny says that, I am actually interested because, we're doing a lot more business, and I want to be able to upgrade our business and checking accounts. And Ava suggests that Jenny goes to her closest local branch to get more information. And what a way to funnel and channel those potential prospects and interactions to the trusted advisors at the branch level. Now, the next section I'm going to be talking about is when Jenny actually goes to the storefront, this is what she sees. Now, some of your credit unions and branches probably looks like this, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that they're just trying to get attention. But what if I told you that you don't want to just grab attention, but you want to engage with customers? And that's where another AI solution comes in. Meet OuterNets. So when Jenny visits her credit union, she is attracted by OuterNet's interactive window display that you're seeing here. And let's find out a little bit more about how OuterNets is churning windows and wall surfaces into these powerful storytelling mediums that engages customers. And it's not just outside, it's actually also inside. Again, any windows and surfaces can be activated. So let's take a look. Behind the scene, OuterNets is a sophisticated computer vision system that captures data about customer interactions. And you can see some of the metrics that are displayed on the screen here. So you can actually start to understand what are they doing, what are the things that they're interested in, and the kind of segmentation and the psychographics as they interact with this information. Now, this information isn't just outside, like I said. It can also be inside. So it can be in the form of a kiosk, or it can be in the form of windows and walls. And it captures all this information. It's just incredible. So in case of Jenny, she's able to talk to Ava on an OuterNets kiosk as she's waiting in line, and she's able to gather information about that business checking account and savings products. Now let's talk about customer insights. Today, we have very little information about what our members really want unless they explicitly tell us, right? So I want to introduce you to another startup called Endor, and it's out of MIT. Endor is an AI predictive engine that's pioneered by MIT professors, and it changes the speed of predictive data analytics through something called social physics. Now, behind the scene, Endor's AI algorithm can predict not only the volume of traffic to that branch, or maybe the kinds of products that they may be interested this week, or the kinds of segments or members within your database that would be most likely to purchase or upgrade to that product. So let's take a closer look.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. I'm Inbal Tirosh. I'm VP Product at Endor, and with me is Omer Van Kluten, a super developer from Endor. Endor provides automated, accurate predictions. We enable business users across the organization to ask predictive questions and get the prediction immediately, instead of initiating a lengthy projects with the internal data science team. Let me show you how it works. This is a standard customer account. This customer is asking hundreds of different predictive questions across the organization. Different business users are asking different predictive questions. The credit team is asking questions like, who will take a short-term loan if we will approach them next week? Or who will register to a new revolving credit, a new product that we launched a month ago, if we will contact them in the next week? The marketing team is asking a lot of questions about promotions efficiency. Who will upgrade to premium if we will send them a discounted coupon tomorrow? Likely to behave in the same manner. So the engine automatically groups people together since they are acting in the same manner. All of these hubs that are being created right now are groups of people clustered together because something binds them in the real world. They are now taking similar decisions. Some of these groups are static. People belong to the same family, they work in the same company, therefore they are taking similar decisions. Hundreds of thousands of these clusters are dynamic. They're going to change every time that you refresh data. People got promoted, they got fired. There is some kind of a new advertising near your hometown that makes everyone look for similar solutions.
So by the time the bank officer sits down with Jenny at the branch, Endor, Ava, as an example, have already identified and informed to the bank officer what Jenny is most interested in. So it becomes predictive. So I think one of the things that I heard prior to this conference was, what is it that all of you are looking for? You're looking for, in the context of all these new technology, is to heighten that trusted advisory relationship. Being a former CFP Series 7, 63, 65, I know what it means, which is it's not about everything else that we're seeing. It's about the human-to-human, empathetic, trust-driven relationships. And that's exactly why they want to keep on coming back to your credit union to do business. So Endor provides that predictive analytics at your fingertips so you can better target and to anticipate your customers' needs. So coming back to Jenny here, she's delighted that her credit union is so responsive and somehow kind of magically knows what she's interested in. And her interaction was so positive that, that she wants to continue and be able to tell this incredible service with others, potentially that could become customers or members to your organization. And by the way, for some reason, again, she's really hungry for hamburgers. Now, to celebrate a great session, she heads to the mall to reward herself. And by the way, ladies, we men, we do the same thing when we have a good meeting. There's nothing more exciting for men than buying tools and auto parts. We get downright giddy, I tell you. The thing that you should know about Jenny is that she's an early adopter of cryptocurrencies. And she wants to know, that she can actually use her tokens to make purchases, which is actually kind of difficult at this point. So one of the things that, in case you're not familiar with cryptocurrencies, imagine that it's money, but it isn't. And people buy it and hope that it goes up, and it's kind of like spin the bottle to see who gets a Viagra. So what Digits does is it converts your credit cards or debit cards to use cryptocurrencies. And it allows for your tokens to pay for purchases. And behind that, there's AI behind it as well. So let's take a look.
What if you could turn any debit or credit card into a cryptocurrency card? Introducing Digits. We do exactly that. Yes, the credit or debit card that's in your pocket now could become a means to pay with your cryptocurrency assets. Simply enter your credit card number and connect your wallet, such as Coinbase, and you're ready to go. We never issue an actual card. We convert your existing card. You can turn crypto on your card on and off and change what cryptocurrency you want to pay with. Moreover, with some magic happening in the background, we can reduce the tax cost of a purchase by up to 30% and allow you to pay back the transaction in the future, allowing you to gain from any price rise in crypto. Try Digits now, a solution so simple, even grandma could pay in crypto.
Now let me ask you, which of your grandmas or your parents actually use crypto? The point of that was that it's what we're talking about is the flexibility of payments, and I think we'll start to see more innovation. Now for Jenny, she's actually very pleased with her interactions with her credit union. And the fact that they were able to tailor and to evolve around her business and her personal needs, that was delightful from our experience. So I was hoping that AI isn't just some buzzword, some abstract concept for you. I wanted to make it actually tangible today, and that was the purpose of some of these videos that you saw today. And really, for all of your credit unions, it has the potential to reduce fraud, to improve customer experience, and to predict who's likely to need particular products or services, and to make transactions seamless, no matter how crazy it may sound, like cryptocurrencies. So with that, again, I wanted to allocate enough time for Q&A, because AI is a new field. It's exciting, but it's also kind of unknown. So I want to transition to questions and answers.
Do you worry in this era of privacy concerns about the customer sitting down and the person opposite them knowing so much about them that it gets a little creepy?
Yeah, I think let me address it in two ways. One is there is a GDPR, which is the new revised privacy mandate coming from EU that has gone effect as of May, I think, 24th or 25th. And that same level of regulation is also coming to the US as well, just because if you're multinational, you're going to have to be compliant. In a lot of the technologies that I showed you today, as an example, the outer nets, all of that information is computed to values immediately. None of that information or film or footage is recorded or persisted or sent to the cloud. So in real time, the system is able to use many computer vision algorithms to get a collection of group of people and be able to decipher cross-segmentation and demographics and convert that into values. And only those values then get stored in a local edge server on-premise, and then those values get pulled periodically to the cloud. So it's really privacy compliant. Now, in terms of creepiness, what I would say is that, and again, I spoke on privacy many times. I contributed to Forrester and other publications, is that we have to be very thoughtful, and updating or revising your privacy policy is not sufficient. And we know that. It requires education. Unfortunately, the problem is there is a rational ignorance among members and consumers. They choose not to read it. They choose not to be informed. So it is incumbent upon us to be very explicit and let them know. Let's say, for example, you're using an effective facial recognition system on site. And we talked about that with Pfizer as an example. In a meeting, could we ascertain the primary and secondary emotions of your consumers or your clients real time? If so, we need to make it very explicit that, hey, we're going to capture this information so I can better tailor a service for you. Now, again, I'm not recommending that you put Effectiva in a meeting space. But the point is, we have to preserve their privacy for their protection, and that they know that you're collecting information in a way that is GDPR compliant, and it's being done in a way that ultimately helps them. And it's not about reselling it to a third party or a data brokerage, selling it to Facebook, and getting into the whole mess with Cambridge Analytics.
Yeah, I think that's the other worry, that all of this additional information will lead to the sort of sales pitch that credit unions are not known for. How do you toggle that?
Well, again, what I would say is a lot of the AI examples that I've showed you is a way to automate or reduce the cost structure of what I would consider less or non-revenue or non-core competencies. So if you go to certain banks or branches, sometimes you will have a greeter, which is very nice. But what if you had a greeter that was more robotic or automated, as an example? Or what if they called into the call center with a very mundane kind of a question around hours, as an example? So these are the kinds of ways to quickly triage so that when you're sitting down with your members, you're actually having meaningful dialogue that's going to move their financial well-being.
Any questions from out here?
Quick question.
Yes.
Two questions, actually. The first one is, do you think it should be mandated that AI should self-identify as such?
That's a great point. I jokingly said that they're going to be crank calling us, and they already are. Most of you guys get phone calls on your phone, right? I think it creates a principal agency problem in the fact that these bots and eventually digital assistants that incrementally move towards something like Jarvis and Iron Man need to be able to have certain delineation between you versus it as a edge-based neural network system, and that when it acts on our behalf on a transactionary fashion, are we liable for that? So if the system called on a particular options, traded it on some sort of a futures contract, are we liable for that if we didn't explicitly command it? So there are some issues, and one of the areas that we're very focused on is something called machine ethics, which is, and I've commented on a report on malicious AI that came out of Oxford report recently, is that scientists and researchers, like the one you saw earlier, are so focused on generally kind of solving a difficult mathematical or technical problem that they're not really thinking about the kind of the ethical, moral issues or the externalities that comes out of some of these things. It really requires a certain policy and a framework, but in the absence or the lag effect from the government, it's incumbent from a liability from your organization to think about how to actually adopt it in a way that's makes sense. And I think Cooper is a perfect example of that. It is not leading edge. It's not bleeding edge. It is a known, well, tested production grade system that is meant to help reduce the false positive. So when your members get a fraud alert, it's genuine. And that's saving money and time for everyone involved.
And then the second question was, can AI detect another AI, or would they be caught in an AI loop?
I love it. What people don't realize that is on social media, there's a large percentage, and I can't remember the exact stats, but about a third or more are considered bots, meaning that many of the engagement or the interaction you're having on Twitter, LinkedIn, and various other platforms are actually with machines and systems. And in some cases, actually, it's bots to bots. And what we're going to see as we get more ubiquity of things like the Internet of Things, more edge devices, more things that are AI-based, it's going to be many times, part of the reason we're seeing a lot of growth in the velocity, variety, and the volume of data is because of systems, inanimate objects, and things generating data. And they're going to be actually communicating and transacting, in some cases, making payments with each other. And this is a premise of IoT-A Tango standards and protocol, which allows for M2M or machine to machines to be able to actually transact without cost.
Other questions? Yes.
Yes. Hi there. Question as far as AI. There's a lot of talk about it, and it's very exciting. Sooner or later, you have to start asking that ethical question. For example, if you've got the cars that drive by themselves, who is actually going to teach them to say, who am I going to protect, the passenger or the person that's walking in front of the car? I mean, there's got to be someone who's going to make that decision. And are we going to depend on the AI to make that?
Great question. Well, first of all, some of the videos that I share with you are part of our portfolio or startups that we're looking to either invest or have invested. One of the startups that you didn't see on here is called Level 6, and they're based in Silicon Valley. And these guys are very deep in terms of computer vision, LiDAR technology. They come from NVIDIA and Intel. And one of the problems that they're solving is this notion of simulated data. So in the case of autonomous vehicles, when they're in a university setting, maybe they have 10,000 magnitude of data points. Once they come into a GM, Toyota, Uber, Context, Waymo, they have access to maybe 100,000 data points. But the problem is, just like we've seen with some of the accidents or death recently, it's not sufficient driving it for a few years to really work out all the potential scenarios and the ethical issues that come up as such. We literally need to have those autonomous fleets drive trillions of miles. So what Level 6 is doing is they're creating simulated data sets using adversarial machine learning. So it's machine learning, one that's generating data, other one that's actually learning from that data. And that solves a pragmatic problem, which is in AI, it's not just brute computational force. No, actually, that's not true. It is the kinds of data, the volume of data, and the quality of data that feeds into that logic. Coming back to your second point is that question was raised in Silicon Valley a few years back. And generally, the premise is we have to instill a certain degree of ethical framework, right? So that ethical framework may say something to the extent of whatever that's going to cause the least amount of harm or take the least amount of lives. And the system will make those trade-off decisions very quickly and solve for that. So do I head-on collision with 4 people in that car? Or do I kill a potential child that's going after a ball? Tough, right? Difficult to assign weights to it. But yes, it is being done. It is being actually worked out.
Okay, and you may prefer to answer this offline, but I'm just curious of the early adopters that are out there in our industry who have had successes and met targets, for instance, deeper member relationships or profitability or growth, that have done the ROI analysis and really proven the cost benefit of their AI.
I love that question because that's so pragmatic, and it comes down to what really matters here. And it has been tested. For example, like I said, we have worked with companies like Pfizer and other financial technology companies, and a lot of them are looking at these kinds of technologies that are very pragmatic and have shown real tangible return on investment. And so in the case of AI in chatbots, absolutely. There's plenty of case studies around that shows the value of that, as well as in call centers. So oftentimes when you're interacting via live chat or call centers, it's actually bots that you're interacting with. What we're seeing is that the simplicity of the bots are getting a little bit more sophisticated, and that's kind of the next evolution that I tried to demonstrate to you today.
Other questions? Yes, back here.
Hi. Great stuff. I'm trying to figure out with our tellers in the front line, what's a timeline of possibly phasing out jobs as those, but of course we don't want to lose our staff, but it's good to prep to know what the timeline looks like for the next 5 to 10 years. What do you think?
So there are plenty of studies. Citigroup, for example, have published studies around the displacement of certain tasks via automation. World Economic Forum have also done it as well. Many. McKinsey has done a pretty good one. At a very high level, at a macroeconomic level, most average OECD nations will see about 40 to 50% of tasks being automated through cyber-physical systems, AI, blockchain, robotics as an example. And I contribute regularly to a lot of these publications. And then when you get to more kind of lesser developed nations, it gets up to almost 80 to 90% in terms of tasks. Now, one thing that I would caveat is that task is not the same as holistic jobs. When you go back to your respective jobs, you're doing more than data entry. You're doing more than taking a phone call. You're doing more than some transaction. You're doing a holistic job. And like you've heard a little bit today, AI is not perfect. What you're seeing are facets of what we call weak AI that are very siloed, that are very specific. They're really good at something, but if you try to apply that to any other domain or introduce new parameters, it fails. So they're very fragile. However, I think you do raise a good question, which is, the question isn't so much, should we resist things like robotic process automation, which is becoming incredibly popular and well adopted and embraced because of the immediate return on investment and other forms of weak AI, or should we basically resist it as long as we can? My position is this. Raise your hand if you watched the movie Hidden Figures. Hidden Figures was a time period when IBM mainframe was coming into the picture. It's frightening, these large computers, you got to punch these paper things, and then these human computers thought for sure they were going to lose their jobs. But what did the supervisor do? The supervisor chose to go to the library and to self-learn programming to operate the mainframes. And then she didn't stop there. She actually continued to transfer that knowledge to her colleagues. So eventually what happened was man and machine start to work together. And I think that's a really important piece because sci-fi and media wants you to talk about singularity and when machines will rule humans and we just become human batteries. But that's not the reality. The reality is these weak AI support non-revenue generating, non-core activities so that you can focus on revenue generating core activities.
Any others? Just, yes.
Hi there.
Yeah.
Now, do you anticipate that there's going to be widespread adoption very soon, or is the uncanny valley kind of creepy factor still going to be in the way for quite a while?
What I would say to that is the economics are so compelling. So imagine that you're a very large credit union, your call center has a staff of, let's say, 400 people. And they're just so busy just handling, let's say majority of their calls, inbound calls, are really kind of mundane questions. Imagine putting something like this as kind of that front layer, whether it has a face or whether it's voice only. It starts to reduce a lot of those potentially cost and expensive pieces so that you can redeploy your labor and your resources to things that actually matter. So instead of receiving silly calls about branch hours and this and that, they can actually make outbound calls on your behalf to start looking at who may be interested in your products that you're featuring.
All right. Oh, one more.
Hi there. So it's been proven usually that the second party to adopt any new technology is bad actors. So, for example, denial of service attacks, multiple requests for web page loads, and it's getting more and more sophisticated with reflection and so on. with the advent of artificial intelligence bots, what are the chances that we're going to see call centers being overloaded with fake callers who are having trouble trying to identify themselves to human operators and vice versa? Are we going to see like an AI war?
Yeah, great point. So in the malicious AI report that I referenced that came out of Oxford University and some other research institutions is that AI in many ways actually lowers the cost structure not only for your organizations, but for bad states and hackers and so forth that are looking to harm. So instead of deploying lots of different people to program certain things that's going to cause these DDoS attacks, man-in-the-middle attacks, and various other things, you can actually allow for these systems to scale and scale efficiently and with low cost. Now, AI doesn't work in isolation. So one of the things that I focus on as it relates to the fourth industrial revolution is the convergence of exponential technology. It's AI working in conjunction with cryptographic technologies and algorithms, such as blockchain. And so one of the things that I talked about a few weeks back in New York is around something we call ZK snark, or zero knowledge encryption methods. So these are different forms of encryption using blockchain where you can share information without actually sharing any information. So I can say, well, let's say I want to know if you're going to be able to qualify for this particular product. I don't even have to ask what your income is. I don't have to ask what your net worth is. I just simply ask a question, and without you sharing a single piece of information, I can actually have a yes or no on my side. And some of these technologies are coming out of MIT and Stanford and other research institutions. So there are ways to combat it. However, it does places a significant importance in your IT infrastructure, your GCC controls, your operational controls, through the entire value chain. And this is exactly why Cooper, as an example, is so important. Because you don't know if it's a human attack that's leveraging the Internet of Things to launch this massive DDoS attack onto your servers or your host, or a human. So on your side, you have to make sure you have the arsenal to be able to fight these hackers.
It is fascinating, and it is a lot to take in, and I'm really glad that you're going to be back later this afternoon for our panel, because I think it's clear we all want to know more about this. So thank you so much for this.